Good evening, fellow Toastaholics and guests.
Good evening.
I don't know if it was the many episodes of watching Flip This House, or if I was lured in by the hint of quick money, or if it was just maybe I finally decided to take my mother's advice 7 years after she died. I've been thinking about investment property for a couple of years, but I didn't want to do it by myself. I wanted a partner. I didn't want to have to deal with the people, the contractors, the buyers, the renters. I would just put up most of the financing and be somewhat of a silent partner. So in the summer of 2006, a friend of mine asked me to come and look at a foreclosed house with him. He's a mortgage broker, and he has access to homes on sale. So when we pulled up, the first thing I noticed is that it has a new roof and gutters. And then we go inside, and I see that the kitchen cabinets are updated. Nice hardwood floors in the living room and the dining room. And we go in the bathroom and see that the wall tiling is updated, but the bathtub is missing. We go in the basement, and we also see that the furnace and the hot water tank are missing too. But even with these missing essentials, I start thinking that this house is not bad for the asking price. Now, I didn't walk away from the house thinking I wanted to buy it. It was a little bit more surreal than that, and that's where my mother comes in. About a month before I went to see the house, I had started taking a look at my life. What was going right, what was wrong. The kind of thing, assessments that people do when they hit a certain age. And what I realized was that I was afraid to take a chance. I was afraid of change. And that was something my mother didn't have a problem doing. She had made several life-altering changes. Some worked, some didn't, but she always kept trying. And as a kid, I didn't really appreciate this because any changes she was making affected me. And I like the status quo if it's working. So I never appreciated her fearlessness while she was here. And it wasn't until she died that I started comparing our lives, and I started to appreciate her fearlessness. So I decided to start a new mantra. What would Kathy do? And Kathy's my mom's name. So whenever I needed to make a tough decision, I would say, what would Kathy do? And normally what my mother would do was the complete opposite of what I would do. So now back to the house. The night after going to see the house, I woke up around 3 a.m. and I started thinking about the house. Should I buy it? Well, since I couldn't get back to sleep, I went downstairs. And downstairs, I keep my mother's ashes in an urn. And as I often do, I talked to her. And I said, Mom, should I buy the house? Kathy, what would you do? My mother would buy the house. So off I go into my investment property adventure. And an adventure it was. It began with hiring the wrong contractor. Remember, I didn't want to have to deal with the people. So I hired a contractor that was a friend of a friend. And I trusted my friend, so I thought I could trust the contractor. Well, I ended up giving him too much money for the materials. He would come late and leave early, and he was several months behind in the timeline. So I ended up having to fire him. Next, it was trying to find a tenant. Now, my original plan was to flip the house, but because it took so long for me to get the house in order, my window of opportunity to sell the house and make a profit had evaporated. And I was running out of money, and I needed to find a tenant and fast. So ads in the paper, word of mouth, and a whole lot of interviews. How do you know if you've selected the right tenant? Well, I didn't select the right tenant. At the end of her one-year lease, which I decided not to renew, by the time she left, there were holes in the wall. They ruined the carpet, brand new carpet, and when they moved out, they left, almost seemed like they left all their stuff. There was a microwave oven they left with the half-eaten pizza still in it. There were a couple of couches, a broke refrigerator, clothes, video games, and a whole bunch of garbage. I mean, there were empty paper wrappers, potato chip bags, pop cans. Oh, and did I mention she was always late with the rent? How do I recover from this, and what was I thinking? I have to get this house back in order. I have to find a new tenant. I remember my mother taking chances, and if things didn't go well at first, she kept trying. She would make adjustments here and there, but she wouldn't give up. And I can remember her saying to me, Tondalea, you give up too easily. You have to keep trying. When things get hard for you, you just give up. You have to keep trying. So I kept trying with this house. I hired a contractor who put the house back together, and met my timeline. I found great new tenants who decorated the house even better than my own house, and they paid the rent on time. So I took a chance, just like my mother, and like my mother, some things worked, some didn't. But it felt good to know that I could do it. And if things didn't work out, it was okay, because I'd lived to see another day and to take another chance. Okay.